I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly. I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships. What does it do? It creates language for what motivates us and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. See, Jackie, I'm nervous. Most importantly, the Enneagram's a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name is Jeff Cook. I am a longtime professor of philosophy in Greeley, Colorado. With me is TJ Wilson, coffee guru, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja.
Hello.
Boss.
Hey.
We have friends back with us.
Hooray, I love friends.
We have 3 guests who each coach using the Enneagram in different ways. All of these are former guests, and we are thrilled to have them assembled with us. And so,
what,
welcome
they coach
all.
Baseball or soccer? Or?
They may, but specifically, they coach using the Enneagram.
Okay. They're Enneagram. Okay, gotcha.
If you had looked at the podcast episode title, it will say Enneagram Coaches.
Fair.
You got to do your homework prior on these sorts of things. I would love for each of you to introduce yourself. Mandy, would you start us off?
Sure. So my name is Mandy Capehart. I am a soccer coach. I work with small children, and I love them dearly. I don't use the Enneagram with those kids, though, because that would be kind of inappropriate. So I am an author, I'm a somatic practitioner, and a grief educator. So I work with the Enneagram through the lens of grief and helping people find what feels like safety again after they've experienced loss of any type, whether it's death, divorce, moves, disappointment, death of dreams, all of the above and more that cause us to feel really unsettled in who we are, and that loss of identity that comes along with it has been so disruptive that Enneagram has been a wonderful tool for people to help find new language and find a way back toward themselves while continuing to recognize that grief doesn't go away.
Welcome. Melissa, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Melissa Kircher. I'm an Enneagram and life coach. I specialize in IFS parts work, reparenting, and just generally creating a safe space for people to show up as whoever they are with whatever they need, and having a bunch of different tools at my disposal to be able to help people find their own answers. So I love learning about unique individuals. I love coaching types 1 through 9, and it's my joy and privilege to be able to work with people every day.
Wonderful. Jackie.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Hello, family. I'm Jackie Contessa. I'm an Enneagram coach and life coach as well, or, not a soccer coach, but more of a glorified cheerleader, I suppose. And I really enjoy using the Enneagram to get people from here to there, whatever here to there looks like for them, and helping them bridge the gap, especially when it comes to recurring patterns in their life. So that's something that I love to do with the Enneagram. I also love gifting back sessions to single moms. And so I love doing that. It's a huge part of my work, building villages of support and education around single moms, especially about themselves. So that's what I love what I do.
Perfect. And then TJ.
That's me.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here.
Friends, I wanted to start off with, for some of us, we don't even know what Enneagram coaching is or looks like. And obviously it's mixed with a bunch of different emphases in a lot of your different work. So when you come to coaching, open question, what are you trying to accomplish as a coach when you meet with somebody, when you're online with somebody? What are some of the targets for you?
A big thing that I'll just jump in first. Hi, guys. A big thing that I do, I kind of said it in the intro, is here to there. That's some of my thinking, because we're responsible for bridging the gap and finding the gas leaks, but I guess not necessarily, and take it from a 2, not necessarily enabling them. I don't want to do the work for them, right? And so helping them to establish what here actually is, what there actually is, and what's the best path to get there. Our job is to sit back and find those gas leaks and empower people to make their own decisions, take their own action, control their own feelings, and so on. So,
for me, Well, I 100% totally agree with that. So I think we're probably going to all have like a version of the same thing. For me, I love helping people feel seen, known, and understood, and creating energy between me and whoever I'm working with that feels like they can come with where they're at the moment, right? So because I think when people approach life coaching or Enneagram coaching or therapy or, you know, any kind of modality, you're at a pain point. You're at a place where you need help and you're sort of desperate for it, but you don't know if this is the right fit and the right person. You don't know, you know, so there's a lot of trying to make sure that it's a good fit, finding out who the person is, listening to them deeply, connecting energetically, and then bringing in tools to help facilitate whatever kind of healing works best for them. So that's sort of the place I start with.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the both of you. And I think my situation is a little unique in that people do come to me with a pain point, but it's typically a very loud pain point. It's a very evident pain point, and yet it is one of many. So in my work, the primary approach is curiosity and allowing the person some safety and some connectivity with themselves to start asking questions. They don't need to know what the questions are. Oftentimes they don't know what to ask and they don't know what they don't know. And so part of that opportunity for coaching with grief involved means we're learning how to be okay being in distress and tolerating the discomfort of not knowing. And Enneagram's wonderful because it gives us no clear answers. It just gives us more wonderful questions and pathways we can walk down and explore. Is this the right path or not? It's okay. If it's not, we can tolerate the distress of having walked too far the wrong direction, but it's really not even the wrong direction, right? It's just another path that we wandered down that we now have more information to deal with.
It's perfect. Well, ours is an Enneagram podcast. One of the things I'm real curious about is how your own type comes out in coaching. So you may be aware of the type of the people in front of you, but you're probably self-aware as well. And the great thing about the three of you is you each represent one of the centers. Jackie's a 2, Melissa's a 5, Mandy's a 8. Each coming with a different center and coming to the task of coaching folks. When you think about your center and how it overlaps with your work, what comes out for you?
As a head type, because I'm a type 5, I think people would be interested to know that if I lean too much in the head space, it doesn't go so hot. So leading up to sessions and in breaks between sessions, I really have to center and ground myself. I have to get in touch with the energy that flows through me, head, heart, and gut. Have all 3 centers online, and if it makes any sense, there is some sort of energy that does flow through that is me but not of me, like universal kind of energy. And when I can be present with all of my knowledge and head type but allow universal energy to flow, there's a lot more connectivity that happens and magic, which as a head type, I think my tendency is not to lean on space for magic to happen, but my experience has taught me that when I let go of all of the knowledge, it all belongs at different points. It really comes in organically. And so while it's really important to have the learning and the training and the constant, like, do I read all the books? Yes. But holding it with open hands is really, really important. And I found it just works best in the work I do.
I think that also speaks to the sense of balance and like being present is not necessarily just about being in the present moment, but being present brings in those balance pieces. And when you find that magic zone that is like, this is balance, then magic happens.
Yeah, I think so.
I love that.
Yeah. As a 2, and being in the heart center and working with clients, I think it's really interesting because I don't want to be cheesy, but there's an intuitive sense at different times where to meet clients, and I love that. And the empathy is at an all-time high, but to Melissa's point, there has to be a balance, because if not, I will start emoting with them, trying to help, instead of coach, and starting to enable, right? And then suddenly my priorities are shifting. And so being balanced puts me in the right place at the right time. The ability to have empathy, to do my best to think logically, and to help my clients put that into action to some degree in a way that works best for them, right? So it is about balancing. It is about knowing yourself, what you are working with, and then meeting with, know thyself before you can know or meet anybody else, right? So we all have I love the terms assets and liabilities. I think we all have assets and liabilities within our centers of intelligence, right? And let's try to use the good parts to meet people. They're right in the front.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful as I'm listening to you two, because, you are my integration and disintegration lines as well as an 8. And so I kind of giggle and I'm like, same. Yep, same. I know as an 8, I am I'm the social subtype. So I'm the counter type, a little bit less 80, if you might say that. So when it comes to grief work, it is such an interesting spot for me to sit in my 8-ness, but also know that I am here to create a collaboration and attunement with this person where they have this visual, or if they have a sense of who I am or my 8-ness, right? That the assumption is there's strong will and determination and authority and aggression and just answers with a very big period at the end of every sentence. And so my self-awareness lets me approach with a much more curious and stance of humility, where instead of sitting back and saying, well, here's the answer, here's what you should be doing, I picked a field where there are no answers. I picked a line of work where I don't actually have the ability to fix anything for you. I can put a Band-Aid on your bullet hole and send you on your way, and that will ruin you for trust with anyone like me in the future. The reality of what I get to do is instead say, I also do not know, and yet I will sit here with you while we do not know together and see what shakes loose for a little bit more safety, a little bit more belonging. And that, speaking to what the both of you were talking about when it comes to that energy, that universality, that intuition of who we are, that begins to come back to the surface so that people can start to trust themselves again. And for me, before I became a coach, learning to trust myself was step one before deciding I would ever truly have something meaningful to bring to anyone else. That, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but as a coach, there's this idea of, I must know what's right. I must know what's best. But even as a soccer coach, right? That's just not the case. That means I'm a guide. It means I'm a Sherpa, if you will, taking them through and saying, look at what you see. And now tell me what you see, because it's going to be different from your lens and your point of view than what I can see.
That's Teach.
Yeah, I thinking of my own work that to date has been armchair coaching, and will hopefully soon be moving into more actual and professional coaching. But there's a sense of this is never about me, and I'm not interested in moving things in the way that I think they should be. Yeah. And it's funny that this has become sort of a big part of what Jeff and I do together, but so much about what I am interested in is what do you want? Why are you here? What are you doing here? And what do you want? And I have no interest in trying to move things for them like that. That's just, if you want something that you can't get, I can show you that, but I don't have any interest in trying to solve this problem for you. I would love to help you see what you want and perhaps how you're going about it in ways that aren't going to get that for you. And yeah, so much of what I think is good coaching is helping people see more clearly the ways that they are engaging in the world and what they're pursuing versus what they want to be pursuing. So,
can I add to that? Oh, sorry.
Please do. Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting what you just said. And I think a good coach knows how to meet people in that space where they are. And I just had a conversation with an 8 client the other day where they asked me something. It was about energy. And they're like, well, you just show up, so you can hang with 8s, right? You're forceful and talk bluntly. And I was like, no, I can. I was like, but I know the Enneagram helps me know how to show up for each person. And they're like, wait, so do you change your personality? I'm like, no. They're all elements of me, but because my job is to be there for you, the Enneagram, and knowing, my client's Enneagram number, if they do or don't, 90% of the time they do, but sometimes we don't, really helps me be able to meet energy with like energy. And that goes a long way in helping people move to their own answers in their own time and in their own way.
Yeah, 100%. That attunement that you create with people is so grounding and so inviting. And I'll say the same thing. I have a lot of ones that show up in my practice because obviously they're grieving incorrectly and they need to figure out how to do it the right way, right? So bless their hearts. It is so fun to work with ones when they're grieving because I can be very direct and very clear and very lovingly challenging, and also assert myself and say, if there's no right answer, now what? And it's such a great opportunity to have that safety, exactly matching that higher energy or whatever they're coming with. It's necessary. That's the way that we, like you said, we're not changing who we are. This is part and parcel, right? These holistic people that we are. That's relational intelligence.
Yeah. I have this, it's funny because I think when we hear coach, we just sort of think the tell them what to do part, but we don't realize, I love the soccer joke at the beginning of this because you never see coach on the field. Coach is not playing, the game, not just telling this person what to do. Coach is preparing the muscle for the time that they never see this person again, and using that relational intelligence to say, my goal here is for you to get what you want in a way that speaks your language so that you can sustain it so I never have to see you again. I love you. Get out of my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where it's at.
Yes.
It's funny you say that because we call it joysticking when you have a coach who's telling the player what to do next every single time. And those players struggle so much on the soccer field because they don't develop the intuition and the trust and the muscle memory to move forward in their own space. You see players who've grown with it, they do a soccer move, and then they freeze because they're overthinking it. They're in their head and they're waiting for an instruction instead of understanding intuitively, who am I and what am I doing and what do I want?
That's why a lot of I'm struggling because I'm about to say that's why a lot of my coaching is based on really doing work to see what the patterns are in terms of what you think you value and prioritize versus what you actually value and prioritize. There's your muscle, baby. There it is. That's how you're going to work out. Yeah.
So good.
Seeing flashes of Ted Lasso here.
Love Ted
Super
Lasso.
sorry. Soccer is very integrated in what I do. I don't.
Soccer
try to
is
bring it
life,
anywhere.
Mandy. Soccer is life.
No, football is life.
Football
Melissa.
is life. Yes. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I literally was just making Ted Lasso Enneagram grief memes the other day, so it's on my brain too.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Also, are we all excited for the AFC Richmond's female all-women's team?
Is that what they're going to do?
Listen,
well,
women's
that's clever.
soccer deserves all the attention. They're incredible athletes. I don't know how I feel about them bringing it back. It had such a beautiful ending, but
I'm on board
Agreed.
now once he said it was a season that had already been written, I believe. So that may, don't quote me. I could be wrong.
nope,
but I
I'm
think
quoting you now.
You better not. What if I'm wrong? Then I'll look
Putting it on
terrible.
the wall.
How dare you?
What if you're wrong? Then what
It
will
might
we do?
be. I might be. My ego will die a little bit, and it'll be okay.
It's okay. Well,
But yeah, I think they said that it was a season that they had already written, and then they're bringing it to the
That's so
screen. So that made me feel a little bit better about it.
I mean, they did plant the flag in that finale, so yeah.
Yeah,
true.
we'll see.
So I know that if I got into coaching, I would come in with a whole ton of confidence and and feel like I probably had a lot to offer. I suppose that anytime you put on the coach hat, you probably think something of yourself where you're like, I can probably help somebody from here to there. And then something happens, and you learn a lesson in the course. And I assume it's the case, especially, if you've done this for a little bit, like you've had the time where you're like, oh, this is the thing. As you've gotten into coaching, like what's the biggest lesson that you've learned for yourself as you're doing this practice?
Oh, that I'm not the coach for everybody. I think that was one of the most important first lessons I learned as a young human. Not that I'm old, but I very much operated in the stance of, I know what I'm talking about, get out of the way, or you're doing a poor job. It wasn't until I understood where I landed on the Enneagram that I realized, oh my gosh, I fill leadership vacuums. I go into situations that have a problem with the way things are running, and I just show up and take over, whether it's wanted or not. And I think that recognizing, like, I have a responsibility to myself, but particularly to anyone else that I come face to face with, to admit when something is out of my depth, when this is not in my scope, but also I'm not going to be the right fit for everybody. So the scope thing is a little easier, right? I'm not going to say that I'm skilled at supporting someone through something I've never understood, but I am in my own ego when I'm trying to protect that, unrealistic worldview and that ideal of self where I want to stay strong and good at marketing. It's really easy to say, of course I can help you. Of course my book is the right book for you. I marketed my book by saying, like, this probably isn't for you. Chew the meat, spit out the bones. Find one piece. You're doing better than you were yesterday. Great for you. I think that part of it was really eye-opening for me.
Mandy, you said you're not going to be able to get rid of me. You said two things that I say daily in my business. Number one, I'm not for everybody. I'm for somebody. That somebody knows what they're looking for. It's me. Number two, eat the fish, spit out the bones. I love that. Well, I say fish. But no, to your point, knowing, and I'll talk about this as a heart type, it took me a very long time to be able to pull apart this idea of, I'm going to get rejected. I have this image. I want to be this helpful person, to be like, I'm not here to be helpful. I'm here because I have these tools and people need to get there, right? So this idea that I'm not for everybody, I'm for somebody has really helped and been like a big lesson. And of course, we've learned that through trial and error. It's not error, I guess. But yeah, I just 100% agree with that. Yeah.
I'm a little bit different in that coaching for me was sort of an experiment with the universe. I didn't set out to become a coach. I just was a 5 going to school, trying to get a certification in the Enneagram, and it just so happened, because, the universe does its thing. It was a dual coaching school as well as Enneagram. So once I got done with it, actually I quit in the middle because I didn't want to coach. I was like, meh. And then I randomly just got accepted into the coaching fellowship, and I was coached by this wonderful woman named Janice. Shout out to Janice. And she totally changed my life. And I was like, oh, coaching is pretty darn awesome. And I actually can go back and get the certification. So I went back and I never quit anything. It's like one of the 2 things I've quit in my entire life. And once I got my certification, I was like, I wonder if I could do this. I don't know. And so I just said, I'll try. And then that's how it's been ever since, is just trying and seeing what happens. But I will also echo, even if you have an experiment with the universe, you still have to go through learning about when it's not a good fit, learning that what you're bringing to the table isn't for everyone. Also making mistakes in session and being humble enough to apologize. I've had people say, hey, that hurt my feelings, or I don't know why you suggested that. You should know me by now, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's a little spicy, which you have to learn how to handle all different kinds of people, and everybody's different and everybody talks differently. So there's just a lot of peopling that happens, and I'm a person and they're a person, and sometimes if I get it wrong or I go on the wrong track, it really helps to say you're sorry, apologize, ask for clarification, and then go in the direction that is the better direction, right? If I have an intuition about something and it doesn't resonate with the person I'm working with and they speak up about it, then we readjust. And so that's really important. I also think it's important to trust the fit, even in exploratory, like lead emails. There have been lead emails where I can just sense it's not the right thing, and I'm just honest about that and say, I think X, Y, and Z might be a better fit for you. I try to refer to somebody else. And also as a coach, knowing when your client needs therapy instead of coaching. I think that's really important, knowing the line between where it hits for coaching and what I can do with integrity in coaching. And then when I need to suggest, hey, we're hitting some places where I think that you need to go talk to your PCP, a psychotherapist, a therapist, and I do that all the time. And sometimes I work in conjunction with those people. They will give me permission to do so, and we have more of a team. Sometimes they go see therapists and see me at the same time. Sometimes it's just moving to therapy. And so it's all about what is right and the healthiest for client. And, I've sometimes, I think earlier on, I think I have had a really good sense of it. I think maybe 1 or 2 times earlier on, I waited too long to say, oh, I think this is beyond my scope and you need to go talk to X, Y, and Z. And then I learned very quickly, as you do.
It's lovely. Before we so I would like to go around the circle talking about how some of the first moves that you have with each of the centers, or perhaps if you know that somebody is a type, where do you generally start? Before we do that, any final thoughts? Here's something that I've really want to say about Enneagram coaching that just doesn't often get communicated. Does anything come to your mind on that front?
I just want to double down on the fact that coaching is not therapy. Yeah, that's a big deal, and a lot of people don't recognize the space between those two things.
Coaching is not therapy. Coaching is still incredibly effective alongside therapy, alongside on its own, as a response to therapy. I have clients like you, Melissa, who are doing both at the same time. I have clients who've left their therapy relationship because coaching feels more therapeutic to them. It's not again, that goes back to scope. What are we responsible for? What are we trained in? What are we ethically allowed to do or choosing in our integrity to do or say? But also, we are life-altering people in many ways, in ways that we create safety for people who have maybe never experienced it anywhere. And that includes with their therapists, right? And so I think when it comes to what people need to understand in regards to Enneagram coaching is this is just a modality. This is just a lens that we use that we love. It is not for everyone. And one poor experience or one silly test that told them, you're an 8 with a 4 wing, because why do I hear that one all the time? Doesn't mean that it's a broken system or a modality that doesn't work. It's just like every other modality has its flaws, has its shortcomings, and has its strengths that when understood and applied with integrity and intelligence and humility can be incredibly life-affirming.
Agreed. And if I was going to answer the earlier question, not the one that TJ just said, that Mandy just spoke so eloquently on, because I was thinking while you're talking and listening. I think that a lot of people don't get that Enneagram. What are we laughing at?
I thought that was a clever way of saying here's where I'm taking the conversation.
Okay, cool. I think people come in with really wanting to know their type, especially if you're hiring an Enneagram coach and if you don't know your type. And a lot of times what we get into the weeds with is trauma and neurocomplexity or I like to say neurospiciness. And those things really affect typing. We don't have research that shows exactly what, but they do.
Yeah.
So it is okay to come into coaching with the goal of I want my type. And then what we get into it with is more trauma work or more work with how you're neurocomplex, and Enneagram might come later, right? I might need to work through all these other things with you first, because all these other things are creating other lenses. Like Mandy said, there's this lens of the Enneagram that sometimes works and doesn't. There's all these other things that coexist with that. And I think when you hear Enneagram coaching, you just think that's it, or Enneagram and grief, or Enneagram and goal setting, right? There's just such complexity that exists within that if you got a good coach and you got a good fit, you can use all of it.
I think, to Jeff's question, I think one thing that really needs to be said, and I have my heartbeat in my throat, so I was like, do I say this? Do I not say this? But I am going to say it.
Say it.
I think a lot of us need to be very completely honest whether or not we like or want to do the coaching part of Enneagram coaching and life coaching, or if we love the tool and are very passionate about it. Do we want to teach it? Do we want other people to know about it? Or do we really want to move people from here to there? And the reason I say that is because I have met with, I'm a big fan of, if you're in a coach, the number one thing you should do is get your booty in a client seat yourself. I've met with a lot of different coaches, and a lot of times, truthfully, it is the same material, no shade. And it is, and what are your thoughts? 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 And how do you relate? And where do you see this? Me being helpful, I'm going to be very honest, I don't see it anywhere in my life. So it doesn't work. I will also say I've met with Melissa. I've also recommended people to Melissa because I've met with Melissa because Melissa uses this tool to coach. Melissa was like, when you just said that to me, look at yourself on the screen and look what you're doing to your body. Right? So I think we as people who love the Enneagram, love growth, maybe love other people, love the transformational tool in our lives, need to be very honest with ourselves about whether or not we love this tool and love teaching it, or whether or not we are going to use it to coach people, to provide people with the education behind their type. Yes, it's going to be fronted and then session long and lifelong and all of that stuff. But at some point, one foot has to go in front of the other. And is that something we can or are willing or able to do with people as Enneagram coaches? And there's no board. There's no one checking. So you have to be very honest with yourself. Take it from the prideful person in the group, okay? Be very honest.
I love that. I was looking to change careers a while back, and one of my options was to go teach with my wife, who at the time was teaching high school. And I was like, well, I have a master's degree in a social science. I could do that at high school level. And the first thing she says, do you like the topic, or do you like hanging out with 10th graders? I was like, well, I love the topic. Like, you would be terrible for
so
exactly
bad.
this reason. Yeah. And that's great wisdom for a lot of us, is you should find people who actually love coaching. They can be average, I suppose. I mean, they probably need to be sort of informed, but on Enneagram and such, but like, find people that really jive with, what they get into in their field. Those folks are a treasure. Anyway, love that as an idea. What I would love to do, Jackie, I would love to start with you on this and start with just talking about when you have folks come for coaching who are in the heart triad. What are some of the things that are first on your radar? And then we'll spin it to everyone else. But I would love to start with you, since you are in the heart triad and you probably relate to them and when they're with you.
Unfortunately, too much. Yes. So a big thing that I do is I try really hard to essentially zoom out. I know I'm not solving people's problems no matter who comes in. And I'm here because I have the information, they have the story, and I'm trying to bridge the gap. And so when I'm working, like I've used the phrase here to there, right? So being honest and establishing what's here, what's there. And there for me as a coach is typically, especially when I know their type, is typically somewhere in line with where, their there is too. So it's always amazing. But the question that I like to start with for a lot of heart types is some variation, and I'll ask it differently per person, right? Per individual, but somewhere along the lines of, what is the impression you want to make on the world, or offer to the world, or contribute to the world? And what are you offering right now? And what's the disconnect? And in there is just the start of facilitating conversation about image, impact, the world, how they're received, where they feel like they're not doing so well, where's the shame getting in, what's shame actively telling them, because we know that if you're working with these main emotions in the center of intelligence, right, these main struggles, these things can be compasses, right? So where are we at with that, and so on and so forth. So trying to essentially, I do this with all of the centers, but asking the question, what's here, what's there, and then asking it in their language to some degree, right? So what do you want to offer to the world? What do you offer now? And what's the disconnect? And that's where, like, a lot of that is doing the excavating, right? And starting with the next question, then the next question, and so on.
It's good.
See?
Is it the case that you all come to heart types in a different way?
Heart types. I think the heart types are actually very different. So 2, 3, and 4 show up really differently, even though they are within that center. So I couldn't lump them all together, even though I'm aware that that feeling center is the very beginning of how they take in information. So with 2s, it's a lot of knowing that they need to talk a lot and verbally process about the things they deeply care about, which is usually relationships, right? And there needs to be me meeting them there. With threes, it's a lot of working backwards to get to the heart, right? And fours, it's making sure that they feel safe enough to show their heart because they're so used to being misunderstood. So that's kind of, for me, what I have in mind when I say
Yeah, I would echo that a lot as well. I think most of the time people who come into me with the Enneagram as a forefront to their coaching, because that's secondary. I primarily work with people who are coming with grief. They know that I'm an 8 and they know that I'm going to have strong opinions and strong insights. And so my openness to them is an opportunity for them to say, hey, you can use me as proxy. Say what you need to say. This is not about me. I am unoffendable. I am not, you can't disrupt me. You can't hurt me. I think there's something within you that has been desperately trying to get to the surface, whether it's my needs are going unmet, I don't know what I feel, or everybody misunderstands me, whatever that is. Being able to say, this is actually a place for you to rage. This is a place for you to recognize anger as powerful. And that'll, of course, come over to my answer later too. But I think 2, 3s, and 4s have such unique expressions of who they are, and validating that in a way that allows them to also question it is really important.
I actually do have an answer, by the way. By the way, if anyone cares. I often tell my clients in general, because even if it's not about, wanting to create an image or an identity, or, just the idea that vulnerability is really, really hard, I'm not able to have an opinion of you. I just don't. We don't have that structure. We both entered this relationship where I don't have an opinion of you. That's it. We have different roles here. And so I think that's a big one that I think gets said more often than not to the heart types. And maybe that's me projecting, right, as someone who's a heart type. But I find more often than not, it gets said a lot to everybody, because even if we don't care to create a desired image, we care.
The representation here, I think, is so interesting to me. Like the 8 who's providing safe space for people to have the full range of their emotions, and the 5 who's providing sort of like individually catered experience of that emotional landscape, and the 2 who is connecting on an emotional level that is trying to also make clear that the image doesn't matter. Like that there's so much wisdom in all 3 of those approaches, and I think it provides something very different, but it's all very necessary stuff for those types. I love that. That's what I was thinking about.
Thing that came out for me, and I imagine this will come forward as we're moving, is twofold. One, it sounds like as each of you are describing how you come to the work as a coach, there's a strong desire to balance. I heard that like a lot in a lot of your language as we've gone through this so far. And yet at the same time, you are unable to escape a lot of the perspective in ways that you are in the world as your type, which I think is fantastic. I think there's a real tension between like balancing your type and pushing as hard as you can into your superpower. And I don't know what the wisdom is actually on this question, but it's always kind of lingering in the back there. But I think it's expressed really well in your all's personalities in terms of the art itself of coaching. And so I'm just appreciative of that for what that's worth. So Melissa.
Yes.
You have head types that I assume come, and
yes.
Are you able? You talked about kind of shutting down the head center at times, but is it the case that when 6s, 7s, and other 5s are talking with you, that there's more space for that, more opportunity to like have kind of a shared language there?
2 things. I don't really shut down the head. I sort of ask it to exist over here. And I'm using my hand to kind of create a space for those that are listening. Like, there's my head, and then there's the space next to my head. It's like it's allowed to be online, but it's not allowed to direct the whole show. I need to have all of the other. Everybody gets its own time. When I work with 5, 6s, and 7s, 5s in general, we can just, talk each other's ears off. 5s often come in to coaching and that is their time to talk. So they do. And it's hilarious because the amount of 5s that I've seen, and they're all different from all different walks of life, different genders, all different kinds of moms, dads, all different. And yet we say the exact same thing in the exact same way. And it just tickles me. So we really connect on ideas. I, though, am the coach, and therefore it's my job to gently pause. Can we just pause there for a minute? I'm seeing this, I'm hearing this, right? To not let it go and get to in we could just jam forever. So I love 5s, but I do have to make sure that we are being productive with time. But at the same time, it's such a nice, sometimes at the end of a session with the 5, we'll just have a little last 5 minutes where we'll just talk about something that we're both really interested in, riff off each other. And it's just so fun because it's so freeing, and it's just so nice for 5s to just not have any filters on. It's just a lovely place. So I love coaching 5s. 6s and 7s are, iterations of the same in that they're the talking. 7s come in with a lot of ideas and really want to be able to talk through that fast first. Meet me there, meet me with talking and thinking and talking and thinking. And then, once I can, then we kind of move into the deeper stuff. 6s, a little bit less of the headspace seems evident at first, but it's there. You can see it. It's the processing, it's the thinking. They're asking me a lot of questions usually. They're wanting me to talk a lot first and then say, what should I do? And then we get into the thought processes that go into asking me a lot of questions first. Then what should I do? And I'm able to dig into, why do you need me to tell you what to do? What are you really asking right there? Like, what's going on underneath? What do you not trust about yourself? What's going on in your life? Where do you feel that in your body when you ask me that, So we meet in the mental space and we foray then into the body and the heart. I think it's easier for me to connect with head types first, but I also can connect with heart and body. I think it's just about meeting where you meet. It's the beginning, right? And then all the other types, it's the same. Like, I think if you're in that same center of intelligence, it comes more naturally to meet there. But yet I can do it with all the other centers of intelligence as well. So, yeah.
Well said. Either of you, I'm transitioning to the other two guests. When you all meet with head types, does it matter? Is there something that comes up for you first?
I think
Please.
Go ahead.
No, I love you. Go.
Okay. Sorry. I think the interesting thing for grief work with head types is the fear is so palpable. It's so loud, whether their voices are loud or quiet, whether their understanding is loud or quiet. The fear of the unknown and the uncertainty of what we're facing down is impossibly distracting. I work with 5, 6s, and 7s in similar ways in that I will just let them name it. I'm like, well, what is there to be afraid of? Let's name every single thing. And none of it's going to get us right now, so we can create some safety and start naming it. And if we want to talk through it right now, we will. But with grief work as the as the foundation for it, it's a very gentle and slow process. So Enneagram stuff becomes such a secondary approach. Where it becomes really helpful is when they say, I think I'm ready to address that fear. I think I'm ready to, we named this one in the first session we talked about, and thanks for keeping track. I think I'm ready to understand it a little differently and maybe look at it from a different perspective. And that's where, whatever other lenses come in help, because we can say, I could have that same fear show up in every other client and every other type, and they're going to approach it in a different way. They want to address it or confront it with a different attack or a different plan or whatever. And that is what's really important with Enneagram work, for them to understand, like, this is how your Enneagram type can support you while you look at this fear and decide where you want to go with it, because it's not something that just goes away. You don't just suddenly like no longer have any fears, but you have a tool and a resource and a framework to say, oh, I recognize that fear. That's come up in my life 15,000 times before, and the way I've approached it was helpful then, but it's not helpful now. And I think that being able to say it's okay to have fears, it would be irrational not to. Have you seen this? Have you seen the world and the people in it? Fear makes sense. How do you embody safety for yourself while recognizing fear still exists? There are things worth being fearful about. How is that providing me some safety? And I think that, you know, my coaching, the lenses are always safety, security, and belonging. And security for a 5, 6, or 7 looks like stability, trustworthiness, something that I can rely upon to stay safe and to keep me safe and to be predictably there when the fear rears its head again.
That must be hard with grief work specifically, because the thing I would assume that they were afraid of has happened. So
In a lot of
kudos
cases, yeah.
to you, for being able to meet people that have had types with their biggest fear happening, and that's why they're seeing you.
Yeah. Thank you. And also to anticipatory grief, not to take this down the grief education line, right? But anticipatory grief is that sense of impending loss, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's the unknown. That is what most of us are experiencing right now. We're witnessing, you know, active grief events and things we are sad and grieved and angry about, and the anticipation of what's to come and our inability to control and influence it. And so that's where that balance becomes, how do you show up for yourself? How do you establish security? How do you establish safety? How do you develop belonging internally and externally? It is hard.
A lot of my, truthfully, a lot of the work that I do with any Enneagram type is I am like the watchdog for patterns that don't look like they have the same head, but they do. And so one of the big things that I don't want to assume about head types when they come in is that they don't have a sense of the information, that they don't have a sense of a thought about it, that they haven't thought about it, that they haven't done the research, that they haven't ruminated. Like, I don't want to assume that. And so a lot of what I focus on is whether or not they have hesitations sorting through something. Because having all of the information about something, thinking about something, planning for something, over planning for something, right? Thinking about head types is very different than sorting through, because, you know, sorting through is the path to there. Because then it's eventually the path to either action or feeling or thinking or doing or whatever. So I focus a lot on working through, and again, everything I do is relational. So it's a lot of, you know, you don't have to kiss on the lips to have a relationship, guys. But relationally trying to sort through, right? Like, what hesitation do you have sorting through this information, these thoughts that I know that you already have before you even clicked, yes, I want to work with her. Because I think part of respecting and knowing people as they come in is, you know, catering to that type. So there are some types who are like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to begin. There are some individuals, I don't even know. More often than not, if I have a head type in front of me, they've thought about what to do, what could be done. They've thought about it, researched it, have the possibilities, the options, so much so that that's the reason I'm in front of them, because it's too intimidating to sort through now. So a lot of my questions and work, more often than not, if I can work with them on sorting through the hesitation of sorting through, they can brave it. They can sort through the information. They can decide what they want, and then they can start weighing those decisions. So a lot of, that's a lot of how I approach working with head types, is honoring their skill that they're coming in with, to be honest.
I have a question that is probably greatly informed by my own hesitance on this, but I'm curious if y'all have experienced that head types seeming more hesitant to offer trust, and in particular, like who do you think you are? Like what you have this certificate, but why does that give you authority to speak to these things?
I see it more in my line probably because there's grief involved. And so it's very much an industry where people monetize, going back to something, Jackie, you said earlier, monetize their grief into a coaching practice where they really don't want to be a coach. They just want to get purpose out of pain and make some money and feel like they've been effective. So I think I do see that more often, but especially with my sweet little sixes.
I was going to say, I have gotten something to that degree more often than not from sexual sixes or sexual ones.
I feel it from the head types for sure. Less sevens, I would say. Sevens, if they're there, they're ready to just dive in, and they're like, let's have a good, if we vibe, let's go. Fives and sixes, it's not implicitly said. It's more of you can feel the energy of just watching you and making sure the conversation is going in the way that feels good for them. It's an assessment of you. And I think that's valid. I think it's really important to know that that's going on and give it room to breathe so that that person feels like it's a good fit. It goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It matters who you're talking to. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. I don't really get the vibe of like, who are you and you have this certificate. It's more of I'm in a place where I am here for a reason. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my money. And so I'm looking at you to see what you're worth, to know that I'm going to get my worth out of this time. And I really respect that.
100%. That's why I really enjoy, I don't know if you guys do this as well, but I really enjoy consultations because I enjoy being very upfront with people. Like, if you want links to the best Enneagram information you could possibly get, I'll send them to you. No worries. But I want to see if we're a good fit for the coaching part. And so I think that's, 100%.
It's really brief. It's aroundthecircle.org. It's just super easy to pitch that.
Patreon.
The thing that I hear, and I suppose it's what I would have expected coming in, would be that underlying feelings and repressed centers would be some of the best places to do coaching with this tool. My assumption in talking to head types would be even just open questions like, what are you afraid of? Can you name it? I mean, he kind of went down that road, and that seemed to be, I don't know what the next step is. I suppose I've said this a handful of times, but I'm just not a fearful person. So I don't actually know how to work with fear because it's just not part of my inventory for the most part. And just to wrap this up in terms of when it is named and somebody says something to the extent of, I want to address fear X, like, what does that even mean? I have no idea what it would look like to, like, are you trying to overcome the fear? Are you trying to downplay its power? What goes through your minds?
I think
those are really good questions.
Oh, they are really good questions. One, I'm very aware that I always answer I think first, and it's just a source of just irritation for myself as a head type. I just hear myself say, I think. I'm like, Melissa, enough. Okay, I think. State it. Use some gut energy.
I know, Melissa.
I know. It depends on why the person is talking about their fear, right? Yeah. It depends on what's going on inside emotionally and somatically. A lot of times there's just different components. And so as a coach, I have to be steady, calm, loving, informed enough to go into that and explore when we talk about this fear, what's going on, and then apply the modality that works best. So if it's a part that's fearful, then we do parts work. And there's consent with that part. Then we do parts work and we talk to the part, we validate. Sometimes we do imaginative work, and the part gets to share its story. Sometimes the fear is like anticipatory grief, and so they really want to talk through what this could look like, how that could feel, and talk through plans. So we make plans. It just depends on I mean, it's very Enneagrammy, but it depends on the why. It depends on what's going on below the surface.
That's 100% it. If the fear is, I want to address my fear of giraffes, that might not actually impact their day-to-day life. And so the work we do is very different than if they're talking about, I'm afraid of getting fired tomorrow morning at work, and every day I go to work and I'm filled with anxiety about walking through the door and having a pink slip handed to me. Those are very different fears, and yet they both address that core foundational need for safety. So we look at, how do you create safety internally when there are uncertainties and things to be afraid of outside of ourselves?
And to go even a little bit further on that, like sometimes the fear of giraffes is actually a fear about something that happened with giraffes.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And like sometimes the fear about getting fired tomorrow morning is actually about not being able to provide for your family. And like that's the thing that you're afraid of. And sussing out like what is the thing behind the thing here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it? Are you just naming another fear at that point, though?
No, I think you're unpacking the nuance of what happens, because the reality is all of this is nuanced, right? It's why we have such a complicated framework as the Enneagram, where it would be lovely for us to say, here's your MTBI number or label, whatever. This is much more saying, here's the box you're in. Let's unpack this box. Oh, God, there's no bottom to this box. It is unending and nuanced. And there are subtypes and there are overlays like neurodiversity and trauma and all of these pieces. That matters. And when we reduce a person down to a type and say, I'm an 8, well, you have put me back into a box, and you disallow my complexity, my uniqueness, my incredible range to come to the conversation. And that, I think, is really, really, it's a very like truncated version of how we could coach. We could be wildly successful surface level coaches making a lot of money, guys. I will write the plan out if we just want to stay on the surface and help people understand how to look like an 8. But that is that false, unrealistic worldview where we stay in our ego and we protect this persona and this idea of us. I think we have to honor there are always going to be complexities. It's why one-on-one coaching is so beautiful with someone who understands there's so much more to you, no matter where your fear of giraffe comes from, no matter what your anxiety about provision comes from, no matter your story you came from. Your unique story matters significantly. And if you can begin to celebrate and honor that unique part of who you are, there's no door that will stay closed in front of you. There's no path you can't run down confidently and then confidently say, whoops, wrong path, back to the beginning.
To clarify real quick, what I was hearing is that you're like, I'm afraid of losing my job is really about, I'm afraid of that I can't provide for my family, which may, go to a different, even deeper fear, which is I think my family will leave me. And at some point you get to a spot. And what I'm hearing is that the spot, you're going to hit the nub foundational fear. And at that level, is it the case that you are speaking into that person's life affirmations and understanding like this is a natural fear? Is there something else going on there once you get to the thing, as it were?
I mean, I wouldn't.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. Sorry. I wouldn't just affirm people and say, oh, that's normal. Don't worry. That's minimizing. That's like, oh, me too. Okay. So anyway, giraffes are no big deal, right? Let's go do some exposure therapy and go to the zoo. I mean, but I do hear you saying, like, does it ever end? Is there ever a moment when we're not going to be talking about more fear underneath more fear? Yeah, of course it ends. Of course it does, because we have confidence in lots of areas where we've probably overcome a lot of hard things. So it becomes a matter of, and as a somatic practitioner, this is where we go. Do you feel settled in your body? How does that, where has that sat down in you? That fear that rises up when you notice the sensation, how does the sensation shift when we talk about it? How is your nervous system responding differently? And it allows us to say, like, yeah, maybe that is the end of that. Maybe that is the source of the wound, or whatever you want to call it, that allows us to say, okay, let's chill here for a bit, work through it, however works best for you, and then we can move into another arena. It doesn't mean that we come back to that same core fear over and over and over and over again. We just remember, oh, it was a reference point. That's a point in history.
Melissa?
For me, when that deep place is hit, it is a place where there is actually grief that needs to be done. Right when you hit the lowest, there's something that's emotionally impactful. And I continue to be amazed and honored to sit in those spaces where when we don't try to fix it, but try to fix it, if you understand my meaning, right? We're holding space for a problem. We're holding space. We've dug, we've excavated, we're hitting this bottom spot. There is something with sitting with somebody. There is something with holding space. There is something with love. I think it's really important to care about the people that we're working with. And I just find over and over and over that expertise plus care plus patience plus information all together allows for the other person to discover the own answer that they already had in there the whole time. That deep place of fear, they actually get to these magical moments of, oh. And those oh moments are where things are released energetically, released somatically, released emotionally. The thought is then released. People really do know how to heal themselves. And that's what the Enneagram is the trailhead, or grief work is the trailhead, right? We go deep down into it. And that spot, I think, is a really magical, awe-inspiring spot. I love that all three of us had 3 different answers, because I think that's sort of the juice of it, is that there's, again, like somebody for everybody. So even the way we're suggesting to find a coach is all different and it all belongs. And so I think it just goes back to the fit and yeah.
I don't want listeners to think that any of what we said was contradictory. It
wasn't.
was either for you or it wasn't, right? And so there's 3 different types of how to work with a coach and what to do. And you can go with the one that was, oh my God, me.
Resonant,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even to put a finer point on that, I'd say, like, give yourself permission to trust your instincts.
Yes.
If you this has happened with interviews that we've done. This has happened a lot. Like it is so important to remember that good coaches are not going to be offended by you not being the right fit. Like
100%.
We have said that start to finish in this entire podcast. Coaches are for some people and they're not for others. Yeah. And coaches know that, and they're not going to be offended by you saying, nope, this isn't right.
Because we're for healing.
Yep.
Like the healing is the point. And so if that's the only and main goal is healing, and then it's not about the personhood. It matters very much, but we want that person to go be with the person that is the right person for them at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
Friends, it has been a delight talking with you all. I will be putting contacts for all of these wonderful people in the show notes. But if you don't know how to click on show notes, as we're sending off, where can people find you and get connected to your work? You want to start, Jackie?
Yeah, I love hanging out on Instagram. I love DMs. I send voice notes back, though, so be warned. I'm on Instagram. It's at table49co. It's FOR and the digit 9, or JackieContessa.com.
Perfect. Melissa?
I'm online at Enneagram-Paths, PATHS. You can also email me at contact@Enneagram-Paths, or you can slide into my DMs. I also love DMing people and have been known to do a voice DM here and there too. So, yeah.
Mandy?
Yeah, so everything is under Mandy Capehart or Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart, my website. I'm active on social media as well. Okay, so voice DMs. I kind of panic when I get them, only because if they're from someone I'm not super warm about, I'm like, girl, this person wants to take up my time, and I read real fast. If you would have just talked to texted that, I would have.
You're the third 8. I know.
I
It was
would've-
like, I can't do voice notes. Oh,
I send Mandy really long DMs.
Yeah,
I
long
do.
voice messages, and have the patience with me to know I'm going to need some real time to sit and listen to this 15-minute-er.
Wow.
Because when I respond, it's going to be the same, because I'm going to hit all the notes you asked for. But a DM from a random person is going to need to just be, hey, beloved, get to the point. Am I for you or not? And see, that's it, right? I might not be the right fit if you need 45 minutes of my time, not because I don't care, but because I want it to be intentional time. and 45 minutes of, processing to a person that you don't know, that's not so intentional.
Friends, it's been a delight talking with you all. I suppose if it's the case you want to get connected with TJ's new work, I imagine it will be posted at Around the Circle, among other places, aroundthecircle.org.
There's a really good chance that may be the only place that it's posted,
That's a
because I'm
very
not
good-
even on Instagram at all. So
It will be.
Yeah,
Nor-
you might want
nor-
to think about that.
do I have
Okay,
to?
nobody tell a 9 what to do. It would be we would love to see that if you feel ready, whenever you feel ready.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's been a delight having y'all. I'm looking forward to talking again. And I suppose that's what I got. You got anything else, TJ?
I got nothing, man.
CJ Wilson, he's officially awesome. These women are fantastic and just a treasure to us. And I'm Jeff Cook. And who you aren't just is not interesting.